Welcome to the Seasons Podcast, where we explore the intersection of creativity, growth, and balance through life's ever-changing seasons. I'm your host, Autumn Hashi, interior designer turned mindset coach and creative mentor. Here, we speak with inspiring leaders, spirited entrepreneurs, and everyday visionaries about wellness, mindset, creativity, and intentional living, offering insights and tools to help you step boldly into your next season of self. Welcome back to the Seasons Podcast. Today's special edition is brought to you by Stay Here, a platform where we celebrate extraordinary stays and experiences for design-driven travelers who value architecture, nature, and the art of slow living.
At Stay Here, we specialize in narrative-driven content creation for hospitality and wellness brands, helping visionary business owners showcase their spaces, services, and stories.
In this series, we feature conversations with inspiring leaders across the hospitality industry, exploring their journeys, the brands they've built, and the thoughtful details that make their spaces unforgettable.
Today, we're recording this episode at Hinter House, situated in the hills of Mont-Tremblant, Quebec, with Mauricio of Hinter. In this episode, we take you behind the scenes of building the Hinter brand, unpacking the power of simplicity, and the invaluable lessons Mauricio has learned about risk-taking, staying true to your values, and his ambitious vision for the future with landmark hotels. Welcome to the show, Mauricio.
Welcome to the Seasons Podcast, Mauricio.
Thanks for having me.
Where are we right now? This is incredible.
We're at Hinter House, which was one of our first places that we opened like almost 6 years ago.
It's so beautiful. Ryan and I got in last night and I had the juiciest sleep in front of the fire on the couch. It was so beautiful. Waking up with the view of nature was so incredible.
You know, it's a special place. We've opened a lot of spaces throughout, but still to this day, I might be biased, but Hinter House, it's Hinter, you know? And I don't think, doesn't matter what we do after, I think Hinter House will always have like that special feeling. And it's the only place out of all the places we have that it was built to be a hotel. So it's a weird space. It's like it is a house, but it's not a hotel room, but it was just built for its purpose. So yeah, it's definitely a very particular space.
Because before you opened Hinter House, you had Hinter Cabin.
Yeah.
And so that didn't start with like hotel roots.
I had no idea that I wanted to start Hinter by then. So it was more of me trying to live a little bit more in nature, escaping from the city. And I started to get really into Scandinavian design, and I ended up finding this beautiful prefab home, and it became my second home. And after about a year and a half of having the house, my wife one day was like, kind of like, well, this is amazing, we feel great. And Emily goes, hey, why don't we share this with everyone? Because, I mean, we were using it a lot, but like still, like the house was empty, like during the week mostly. And I was like, let's try it out. And at the beginning it was just Airbnb, and then started booking, and then kind of like, hey, we have something here, and we have like a special space. Why don't we spice it up and put some branding into it, which is the part that we love the most. So then Hinter as a brand was born, and yeah, we've been doing that since then.
What does Hinter mean?
It comes from this, I've always been a little bit of a sucker for coffee table books. And in the past 10 years, a lot of like cabins, nature, and there was this book called The Hinterland that I always loved. And it was about houses in the middle of the woods, like outside of cities, and I don't know, it always stuck with me. And then I looked up at what Hinterland means, and it's a German term, and it means the land behind. So Hinter in German is behind. So that turned into Hinter House. And then from that point onwards, we just leveraged the Hinter for everything that we started actually building. Because even before Hinter, the brand was called Hinter House. And then like 2 years later, I was kind of like, okay, let's simplify this. Let's just use Hinter. And then whatever we produce or create will carry that name.
That's incredible that you set such a good foundation that you've been able to expand upon. And
Yeah.
it's really cool that you kind of had Hinter from the onset. Like, it wasn't called something random and then you switched it to Hinter. It's always been Hinter.
I was lucky with that because usually it's hard with names.
100%,
It
yeah.
can take you forever and stuff like that. And it was kind of like randomly. And I've never come up like with something so good. I find it, I like it. Yeah, I don't think I can do it again.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure you can. You guys are
Yeah, but not the
incredible
name.
at branding. Yeah, that's really cool. The space is gorgeous. I love the design. So you're very inspired by like Japanese and Nordic.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I used to travel a lot for work, and one of the places that I visited a lot was Copenhagen, Oslo, and over like 2-3 years, I really started getting into their vibe, their design, philosophies too, like just putting a lot of like care on craftsmanship and like putting a lot of love in things that are built and not just building to scale or like for volume. And a lot of like simplifying life and like less is more. And I think like things kept adding on that end. And on top of that, my love for nature, that it just like started shaping up. And that's when at a certain point when I was in Copenhagen, no, I was in Norway hiking, and I saw like some like incredible houses while I was just like hiking. And I was like, why we don't have this back home? Because we have like a beautiful cabin culture, right? Hello, Cedar. We have a beautiful cabin culture, but I don't find it like in the Northeast, we had like that much of a variety, especially when it comes to architectural design, like cabins or cabins that simply are expressing in terms of design different cultures. In this case, Scandinavian or Japanese are simplifying that. So it's not that there's one better or worse, it's just having that sort of like choice. Yeah, so that's where like the whole idea and concept and injection of culture came from.
And we're in Mont Tremblant.
Yeah.
So all the Hinter houses are in the Quebec area.
Yeah, so far like that's where we started and that's where we have kept Hinter. So right now we have 5 houses as part of the Hinter world here in Tremblant. And probably that's about it when it comes to Tremblant, although Tremblant is a great ski resort and area in the Northeast. But we want to start exploring different areas.
Which is so exciting for anyone
Yeah.
who loves the Hinter brand to know that they can explore it in other places.
Yeah, it's fun too to actually understand like other like cultures or areas and exploring those areas. We've been here for 5-6 years, so it's kind of like also time to let's start opening Hinter spaces in other places.
How would you say the brand has evolved since you started? Because 6 years ago, the landscape of short-term rentals was a lot different.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the idea of always building a brand was there to differentiate ourselves, but also to create basically something different. I think in the early days was let's hire photographers that we like, videographers that we like, and let's create original content. This is 5-6 years ago. It has evolved into a lot of like more culture into that. So we still do a lot of photography, videography, like a lot of like social media. I think we were doing that from day one. But throughout the years, we have started a Substack, a magazine, a digital magazine, like talking about slow living, about what the future of hospitality looks like. So it's not anymore pictures of pretty cabins and pretty spaces and just waiting for bookings to come. It's like, how do we, Hinter has become, it's just so weird when a brand becomes its own entity and its own brand. It's kind of like a little kid and it keeps growing and it keeps maturing. So to the point that right now it's like it's a thing of its own, you know, like has like almost like a different personality than you. You are the father, but like probably you're like your kid has its own things. So yeah, I think Hinter right now is like a lot of culture, a lot of like collaborations with artists. We're planning to do residencies. So yeah, if there's one thing that if I could put it in one word, I think in the last year or where Hinter is going, we got obsessed with creating a brand that provides culture and not just the brand that wants to sell. Yeah, yeah.
So when you started, you had the Hinter cabin that was yours, and then the first flagship is Hinter House, which we are at right now.
Yeah.
The question is the importance of branding, and like what was the vision from day one? Because like when you set out to create this flagship,
Yeah.
how big was the vision? Because now I feel Hinter House it's not just Airbnbs or places to stay, it's a full grown brand, like with the Substack, with all of these different elements,
Yeah.
bringing in artists. It's so much more than that. And did you have that vision from the beginning, or how did that vision come to life?
No, I love that. No, we didn't have that vision. I mean, I think when this house was ready, it was like, okay, it's not a game anymore. We're creating a brand. But it keeps evolving as you go, which I find it's the fun part. Like as I said before, like at the beginning it was kind of like, let's create this beautiful space, let's rent it, beautiful photography, and that's it. But also we have this thing, Emily and myself, that once you get there, there's this need of what's next, or how do you do it, or kind of like just because we like to play and kind of like, okay, we got here, what's after? Or like even before starting projects, you think about the project and then 3 steps ahead, just because it's fun. Just because like I think like we're very creative people on that end, and that kind of like inspires us. So I think that started shaping up that. So we didn't have a clue about like what it would take, but like we started actually, okay, what's next? And I think like that for any business, if you think about it, is like the fun part of it, you know?
I think it's so important too for people that are watching and listening that like 6 years ago, you didn't have this all sorted out. It was something that evolved as you went. And I think on the internet, it can be so easy to see someone in your position that has all these properties and a Substack and all these things and be like, I want to get there immediately. But that was an evolution. Like that wasn't something that you just came up with overnight. It's something that you've built on year over year. And now you have this incredible brand.
Yeah, I think it all comes with passion and curiosity. And I think as long as you manage to find something that you love and you do it every day, it ends up evolving into whatever it is. But if you plan too much ahead of time, it loses that sort of soul, and also you lose focus on what makes you happy in the present time. So it's just like more about on the everyday basis, do what you love, and like wherever your path it's supposed to take you, you'll just get there.
I love that, like the concept of not over strategizing before you start, because I think sometimes overthinking things actually leads to like not even moving on them.
You take the fun out of it, I think. And maybe I think like that too because I came from like the software world where like everything is like faster is better, bigger is better, more sales are better. Like your like last month has to be like your next month has to be better than the previous one. So I just got like anti sort of like that, and more about doing what you love, be passionate about it. Business will come, but like not just following that line, and that comes with not having to plan ahead. Like, oh, like this is what we want to be like in 10 years from now, and like that's why I'm working so hard right now. It's just like have fun right now, and basically wherever that takes you, it should be it. And a good example is we're planning to build landscape hotels eventually. But it's not that kind of like I'm saying, hey, it has to happen next year because it has to happen. Like, we will eventually get there, but there's no kind of like a clock ticking, sort of like, okay, we have to do it. And like, I think that takes the fun out of it, you know? So it's just like, we'll get there, slowly but surely, at our own pace, and we'll dictate our own pace. And like, that makes things a bit easier.
I would say the most challenging part about that is like the financial aspect, because a lot of people that are starting businesses, like you need to have a certain amount of like income in order to have the space to be creative.
Yeah.
So when you moved from your tech position into buying, like what was that process like?
Like drug withdrawal sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like unhooking yourself from the matrix basically, and just like being like, it was tough, you know, because you have all that stability, you have a paycheck every 2 weeks, and then you're just like saying, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. And I mean, the first years were brutal, you know, like it's just a lot of like just trusting the process. And still to this day, I mean, it never gets like kind of like super easy as everyone thinks, okay, like not at all. Like we have our days and we have our months. It's like it's hard, you know, but you always come back to we're doing what we love and we are writing our own terms every single day. So that's worth it. And I think that's important to hear, because I think like when you start a business, you think, oh, in 3-4 years it's gonna be great. Like if I get there. We all have challenges at like different stages. Doesn't matter how far you get to, like you always have like a different like challenge. So it's like more the mindset that has to change more than kind of like the time, like where in the timeline you are.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying about like doing something that you're passionate about, and like choose your hard. It's hard when you're doing something that you don't like. It's hard when you're doing something that you like. So wouldn't you choose the hard where it's like you're actually fulfilling a passion and making an impact and supporting the environment and doing something incredible? I think that it's hard no matter which way you go.
Yeah.
So it's choosing your hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to jump in and talk about some of the design elements you've done, like the auxiliary things, like the sound system, the fireplace that rotates, which is, it's such a small thing, but it makes such a world of difference.
I didn't believe Ryan when he said, because he watched a YouTube video before and I didn't watch the whole thing. And he's like, the fireplace rotates. And I was like, no, it doesn't. And he's like, it does. You can have it on while you're in the kitchen making your coffee. And then he rotated it for me.
Yeah, but the small attention to detail like that. I'm a very detail-oriented person. When I create films and I do everything, it's all about the details. And even having the fellow coffee set up. The first thing I do when we're going to stay somewhere is find out what the coffee situation is, so I know if I need to bring my setup or not.
Literally goes into all the images and he's like, where's the coffee images? I need to know what they have.
What they're working with. Do I need to bring my scale? Do I need to bring my pour over, my kettle, like everything?
Which, by the way, he also does this when we go to cafes. He looks to make sure there's a La Marzocco or we're not going.
Or at least a decent espresso machine. Yeah.
Like he literally will go into the Google images and be like, okay, they have a La Marzocco, we're going.
A Rocket, Marzocco, I can stay.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so for me, even the soft lighting you have around the perimeter of the interior, as a filmmaker, lighting is everything. This podcast is lit right now. And having that soft ambient light, I feel just makes it such an inviting space. Last night, I just had those lights on with the fireplace.
Such a vibe.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
The perfect way to unwind after a long drive and just settle in. So I just want to talk about how you chose to pick these things and why. What was the intention behind it?
Yeah, I guess in a way I got a little bit lucky. You have to be picky with who you work with. And I think you have to have a vision of what you want to build. But I'm saying that I got a little bit lucky because sometimes you can just think that you're going to work with someone and like things don't work exactly the way that you want to. But with the Hinter House's architect, his name is David Workin, and David is such an amazing architect. I have a lot of respect for him, and we designed this house like 6 years ago when he was still a fairly young architect, starting his practice. But right away, you can tell when people are really like they have so much attention to detail. And as the first time that I was like designing a house from scratch, it's hard too because it's costly. Like details are costly, you know? And also a lot of like times, I find it especially in North America, which is a little bit annoying, we're all about cost efficiency. And design suffers from it. And details suffer more from it because they're small things, but like everything's in the details, you know? Like it's crazy. You don't need to know about architecture and design, but like when details are properly done, or like when it comes to like video production, like people don't notice them, but they do. Like things feel differently, you know?
Which is like, so hard to explain as a designer, like the difference between a minor tweak in materiality, but like it changes the game.
Exactly. It's hard to describe it, and like I think that applies to any sort of art. So going back to David, he's that kind of guy that every single corner is thought of. And at the beginning I was like, dude, are you crazy? Like, why are we gonna do this? And there was a lot of like trust there. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, this sounds right. And I remember also a lot of like contractors or people saying, hey, why are you doing this house? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why don't you do a 2-floor one? Or like, why don't you put a basement on it? Or why, like the shutters are so expensive. Why would you put the shutters that like move around the house? Like you can still like rent for the same amount and not have these shutters. There's a point that like you decide to create art and trust like your work and basically go for it. So I think the building as a whole, we just push for that. Let's build something beautiful and let's build something important, and like let's forget a little bit about like cost efficiency without going crazy or without being stupid, right? It's just kind of like, but it's also like a different type of luxury. Like going back to the conversation of Scandinavian, Japanese side of things, you're just minimizing things. Like, I don't know, like there's no big chandelier that will take like half of the budget. Here, like,
I've been there.
Okay, so it's just like less things, but like cleaner, and I think that makes a difference. And the other thing, back to the accessories, I think it applies the same way. Like, I've traveled my fair share, and I was so annoyed in terms of like coffee. Like, it doesn't matter how good the hotel was sometimes. It's just kind of like I would be given an espresso capsule. It's kind of like, come on, you know?
We stayed at the proper hotel.
They had an espresso at the proper
Santa
hotel.
Monica,
Yeah.
and that's like a very high-end place. You're paying a lot of money to stay there.
Yeah.
And you had an espresso. I don't know.
I mean,
how,
I really liked it. I think
that-
the way the cups that it was in made it taste better.
I don't know how Nespresso has tricked people into thinking it's premium coffee. Hey,
I
real
like
quick,
Nespresso.
it's not good. It's just not. I don't care how many labels you put on it, what flavor notes you put. It all tastes the same. It's capsule coffee, and it's terrible.
Yeah, we could do an episode just on this, but
Yeah.
but it's wild, yeah. And so little, like, I don't know, like I'm so passionate about like if it doesn't exist, create it, or like how do you make things different? If you're given like Nespresso capsules everywhere, how can we improve it? The same with the sound system, you know. So like
The speakers are incredible.
Thank you.
Where did you find them?
where did I find this?
They're like 1970s,
I
gorgeous.
found it from like the coolest kid in BC. He's probably 18, 19, and he's a geek on speakers. But I found him on Facebook Marketplace, and this kid has a collection of like speakers from Japan, like South Korea.
We need the contact because
he's
this
amazing.
is on my like Pinterest board. I'm like, I need really cool vintage speakers.
But
Yeah.
not only that, the sound.
The sound is
The
amazing.
sound, like,
Oh
It's
yes,
so
they
warm.
sound insane.
That's something
Yeah,
else
yeah.
I look
Yeah.
for is also, do I need to bring a Bluetooth speaker? What's the sound like? Because I want to create the vibe, the ambient
Well,
sound,
that's what
right?
it is, you know, like in a lot of like Airbnbs or like hotels, like you have like, I don't know, if you're lucky, which still kind of like, it's okay, like you'll get a Sonos speaker or something like
Yeah.
that, you know? I'm a big believer of things that have soul. And when it comes to vintage speakers, I think there was a time like in the 70s or 80s where we were doing things right and manufacturing things, and design was a thing and not like overproducing things and kind of just like, let's go for quantity. It just changes. And like someone that doesn't appreciate or is not a hi-fi geek, it will still notice them.
Yeah.
Like you still notice the difference and the feeling, you know? So again, just like details over details, and you keep just stacking them up,
Yeah.
and you have a different product. Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. Also, back to the rolling shutters. I don't know if people will see it, but like basically you see these windows behind us. There are slatted shutters that you can move across to shape the light. And I have it on the other side, which is creating these nice lines on the floor to block out the sun. Just details
It's
like that,
so
because
cool.
you can play with the light. And as a filmmaker and a photographer, it's one of my favorite things
Photographers
to
love this
shoot
place.
Yeah.
the contrast
Yeah, yeah.
between light and dark
Yeah.
and capture those little pockets. So like a detail like that, I've never seen a house like this. It's usually curtains or some sort of blinds, which don't look aesthetic any way
It's
you shoot
wild.
them.
You
But
can-
this,
you can literally play with the house, and
Yeah.
and I think as adults we forget that a lot, like to playing with things.
Yeah.
And like a house has to be in a way serious, you know, just like put cool things around it, play with it, transform the house. Like if you close all the houses, also if you want to actually try this like at night, blue hour, close the entire house, turn on the lights. It's a lantern. You know, it's just like kind of like you see like the light coming from the slats. There's like some cool shots. It's just
That's one of the images I have in mind to create.
You got a whole shot list.
Yeah, beautiful.
Sometimes when something is like aesthetically beautiful, people feel like it has to be serious, but like Hinter is playful, but it's also aesthetically gorgeous. It like hits all the marks.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's about having fun, honestly.
Yeah, I am a big advocate of like investing in the things that make an experience unique and different. I'm always telling clients to like do things that are different because that's what people are looking for.
Yeah.
It is so easy in 2024 to see a cabin down the street and rip it off and do the same thing. And it's doing things that are like investing in shutters around the entire house. Like nobody can take that from you because it's so uniquely Hinter. No one's doing that. And I think investing in the things that make an experience completely unique is so important in today's rental market because people are looking for that now. People are looking for great design and unique experiences. And so by putting some of the budget towards those kind of elements, you're actually making your property more desirable.
I think it comes from trusting other people as well. I find that a lot of people create a Pinterest board and is like, I got it, you know, and who needs an architect or like an interior designer? I have it. It's just like,
I'm dead.
Here are my boards.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of like, and I'm gonna save so much money. Like no offense, but like you're not an architect and you know you're not an interior designer, and that's okay. That's completely fine. I think what makes it interesting is when you trust people, you choose the people that you want to work with, choose the talent, and get something out of it. And it's like collaborating with people, like playing with these like humans and coming up with something that collectively it's a creation. And there's not much appreciation for that sometimes.
Collaboration is so important. And to your point about like, if you're finding something on Pinterest, it's already been done before. And so you want to find those people that are talented, that are hungry and passionate, and they're going to bring completely new ideas to the table and blow the Pinterest board out of the water. Yeah. And there's a level of trust in that because when you're creating things that are incredible, usually they've never been done before. Yeah. And so there's not one that you can reference and be like, oh, it's like this. It's like, no, we're doing something completely different. And that requires a lot of trust in the vision.
1000%. I think Pinterest is great for getting a base, but it should always be how we can improve something or what's next or what's my own vision of it, to create new things.
So when it comes to branding, Hinter is an incredible brand and it is so much more than a place to stay and it's growing. How important would you say it is for people that are thinking about getting into short-term rentals now to have a solid brand?
Huge. I think that if you do it properly, your brand will become bigger than the actual transaction or your rent. But it also depends what you want to do, right? I don't think there's right or wrong. There's people that, hey, I don't want to invest in a brand and I just want to rent my cabin here and there, put it on Airbnb and that's it. That's respectable because hopefully you're doing something creative somewhere else. That's fine. But if you're going in short-term rentals or into hospitality, it's just so important. And I think if anything, at least for me, and you're gonna hear a lot the word fun, but man, you're playing. You're actually creating something larger than yourself. And how cool is that? You know, giving life to things. And with a brand, with a house, with a space, it's just you're creating things outside of your realm. And that I don't know, there's something very gratifying to it. And as a business, it's just so important to differentiate yourself. If you want to actually go into hospitality, people to remember you, keep stacking things up that build a brand. Keep, this is gonna be different, and then I'm gonna add another thing, and then all of a sudden you have a brand. I think you have to have your principles or cores, what you want to build, but whatever it is, and whatever kind of theme you want to go into it, but you keep adding it up until you have a brand. And as you said, these days, everything is kind of just the same. So it's not so hard to differentiate, honestly.
Hinter is 6 years old. The essence of Hinter, while it's evolved, it's always stayed the same. And that's probably rooted in having really strong core values.
Yeah.
What are some of the values of Hinter that have kind of standed the test of time and that you are continuing to bring into new projects?
Yeah, I think minimalism is one of like a big one, and nothing against maximalism. Actually, I do love it when properly done. But there's certain things, simplifying things, creating the spaces that give you headspace. And for that, I'm a big believer of like not too many items, like spaces where you can reconnect with nature. So if you don't have too many items and most of like your background or your setting is nature, I think you'll have kind of like a little nice formula there, kind of like nicely architecturally designed spaces that allow you to step out of the house and be connected to nature. Then that's a core thing, right? Doesn't matter where you do it, that is kind of like really embedded into it. And I haven't seen much of that. I've seen a lot of cabins in the woods connected to nature, but like really pushing, like if we simplify it, pushing on like Scandinavian Japanese design and like nature, and see what, like it can be like 20 different houses or 20 different hotels, but you have those two things and you can keep coming up with like cool stuff around it.
And what would you say is the importance of consistency? Because like every Hinter house has similarities, but I think they also have, like they have through lines, but they also feel uniquely distinct.
Yeah.
And how important is it that they are consistent from all touch points, like digital, social, photography, interior design, having everything feel like Hinter? How important is that?
You have to have a base. So like what we were talking about before, coffee or speakers, they're not all the same speakers, but like they're like a curation of like different speakers. So it's a form of consistency with variations, you know. With coffee, we have the pour overs here. When we started opening bigger houses, we did the pour over, but like quickly we realized kind of like pour over might not be efficient when you have like 6 people or 8 people in a place and you're just like pouring over coffee. Like everyone's gonna. Like, yeah,
that's Ryan. Whenever we have people over,
yeah,
he's like a little cafe.
It's gonna be 45
Everyone's
minutes.
coffee is cold.
So we came up with different solutions, you know. So I think your core needs to be consistent in terms of like the ideology behind, but then allow room for variations from that core. So that way you don't end up with cookie cutter stuff. So you have like a base, but you can play with that base. Does that make sense?
Which I think is so important, because if every Hinter house had the same speaker and the same whatever, it's like it kind of loses the excitement.
Yeah, because you want to try different things.
Exactly, and you want to have different experiences.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also so important to connect to the landscape you're in, because I'm sure there's different landscape and natural elements at different properties that you want to accentuate, and that makes going to that property exciting as well.
Yeah, and other little like features, like this one has a sauna, this one has like a hot tub, this one has a meditation room, I don't know. Yeah.
So through all of the Hinters that you've created, are there any design mistakes you've made or things that you've done and you're like, oh, I'm probably not going to do that again, from an aesthetics point or like a price point or like an idea that kind of like, you know, when you're trying new ideas and being bold?
There's a few. For example, the house we're at right now, Hinter House, sometimes you want to put houses in a mountain and kind of like make them remote. Hinter House, it's not so remote. We're like 15 minutes from Tramland, but if you're not from Canada or like you're coming from like anywhere south and you don't know what winter is here, people freak out with the roads and the access to it. So like if you ask me if I would do it again, I would put the house in a place where it's like more accessible in winter months, because like it's tough. Like you see the driveway and putting the house in here.
I stopped halfway down because it was raining, and I was like, I know it's all-wheel drive, but I've had this happen at another cabin in Halliburton where I showed up and it wasn't even snowing. It was just wet, but all the leaves make it like ice. And I drove my car down thinking I have a Fiat 500, and I noticed my friend left his all-wheel drive RAV4 at the top of the hill. I'm like, this guy. I'm like, he bought this so he wouldn't get stuck, because we got stuck the year before in his sedan. And I thought I was brave. I drove down the driveway and quickly realized I cannot get back up, and it's not even a fraction of as steep as this.
That's a good example of things that you don't think about. But 6 years ago when we're building the house, oh, it's cool. It's going to be inside the mountain. It's going to be like hidden. well, get there.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
actually happened a lot. Like, I remember going to one stay once, and it was night, because when you're going places in the winter, it gets dark so freaking fast.
Yeah.
And we got there and it was night, and the entire driveway was not lit, and it was like, I don't think that it was freshly shoveled either. And so we're walking with all of our stuff at the bottom of the hill in the dark through the snow, and yeah, it's like, it's so beautiful, but it's also not super practical sometimes to be in a place that's inaccessible. So yeah, that's challenging.
Another big one is whenever you're working with architects and you're going high end, you have, I don't know, like the windows that we have here, the way that you open them or close them, okay? Usually architects will go with like cool stuff, but sometimes it's complicated. And it's totally fine if it's your house because you're using it every day, so you understand how things work. But if you build something for commercial use, people are playing with this super expensive, like, until like they freaking break, you know? And it's not the user's fault, but it's just like when you jump into like hospitality, you have to expect, like, you have to make things as dummy-proof as possible, just because people are experiencing your space for the first time every single time.
And people panic, and they're gonna want to message you right away and be like, how do I do this? How do I open the window?
So it's how do you simplify the hell out of it? That was kind of like a little bit of a journey with the speakers, because it's super easy, Sonos or like Bluetooth, everyone knows. So kind of like, how do you figure it out how to make it simple but put like 70, like speakers from the 70s? So it's a lot of research of finding like the right amp that is not going to be one of like amps can go crazy expensive, and you don't want to do that because of that same thing, you know, like people don't know how to use them, and like it's going to end up breaking in like 3 months, and then you're going to cry about it. But then so finding the right amp that like you can just walk in here and open Spotify and just like stream it, you know. So there's a lot of like thought into that to simplifying things, but also a lot of mistakes initially done to just like, oh, these are nice windows, they're breaking, how are we gonna do it? You know?
What about wear and tear? Because you also have like really nice furniture.
Yeah.
And like even cutlery and plates and things like that. Like, how do you prepare for things breaking? Because I feel like one thing that comes up with Airbnb owners is that they don't want to put nice things in their property because they're afraid of them being ruined, but those are also an element of the property.
Yeah, I think it's finding the right balance.
Yeah.
You cannot go too expensive, definitely, but also don't go Wayfair, IKEA, and expect that you're going to be like different than everyone else, right? So I think you have to get creative on that end. We have made mistakes. Like the couch that you guys are sitting, it's temporary, but it's like a couch from the 70s, which is great, you know? But if you're like, it's high traffic and it's a couch from the 70s, it's gonna suffer, you know? So you have to pick your battles when it comes to those things. And like, there's a lot of research on that. Same with cutlery or like dishes. Like, you cannot go for like something like, again, IKEA, but also you cannot go with something expensive. So just like finding the right balance. And another cool thing that we've done throughout all of our spaces, we ended up collaborating with a lot of artists. And that allowed us to artists, like, we see our spaces as showrooms, and we talk a lot about the artists that are featured in the houses, which basically we're happy to promote them, and kind of like every time that you're a guest, you just get a lot of information of who built this or who built that or whatsoever. But that collaboration with artists also allows us to, hey, let's do an exchange. We can buy it at wholesale, but we will promote your products or promote your brand. So now you have items that are expensive, a little bit more cost efficient. We're still supporting and covering the cost for the artist, but also we're promoting them. So it's like creating partnerships sort of thing, where like it doesn't have to be retail price because you're bringing mutual value, and then kind of you build a win-win situation. So that has helped a lot too.
I think that's incredible for everyone involved, because like the furniture is accentuating your space. You're also supporting the artist. Off camera before, you mentioned Le Centerpiece, and they're a vintage shop that I also love. They do incredible lamp curation, furniture curation. It's great that you have them so locally available, because they are incredible at sourcing.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many talented people out there, and it's about creating those partnerships. And I think doesn't matter where you are. I think you can get creative. You can work who you can work with, depending on what brand you're creating. There's always someone doing something cool that like within your realm or like theme. So it's just like more about approaching them, and I think it's just important to always look for a win-win situation. Kind of like, how do I help this person and how they can help me, and being super transparent about that from like day one. And like cool things happen, and like sometimes they don't, but like eventually if you keep trying, you just like find the people that you want to work with.
I'm a massive fan of collaborations and have done a lot in my interior design business. I saw that you guys did a collaboration with Transparent Speaker. That's a really cool brand. Have you done any other cool brand collaborations that like with bigger brands, not necessarily like smaller artists, but like brands to furnish the space or things like that?
We have not on purpose. I think so far we have focused on independent artists. We've had the chance to work with like bigger furniture stores, but at a certain point I felt that it would become too mainstream. Because and I think going back to culture, at least for Hinter, because this can work with other brands and that's totally fine, but like when it comes to Hinter's culture, was a lot of like working with independent artists and creating this sort of environment where you're helping also artists. So like it's a lot of like giving back, and like we give back on the sustainability side, but also how do you help up and coming artists? So we always focus on that end. But that doesn't mean that you cannot actually do it with bigger brands. For some of our spaces, we have a nice partnership with Attitude, which is a body care. So larger company, not that artistic, but it's a good product. So all that to say that you can actually just partner up with bigger brands in different areas to actually get what you want.
I think it always comes back to having those rock solid brand values, because you know what brands are aligned and what brands aren't, and sticking to your guns and, you know, saying no to a brand that's not aligned to protect your brand. Like the brand is everything.
And I think like also on the other end, I don't think enough people starting like hospitality or Airbnb realize how easy it is to partner up with brands, because it doesn't matter like if you're building a brand or not, but there's so much traffic going into your space that it's the perfect place for people to test products
100%.
or live products. So the moment that you tell that to any brand, it just clicks, because a lot of times they didn't even think about it, but it's like, oh yeah, like people are going to be testing my product, seeing my product, and you're not going there to give me a freebie. It's just kind of like, how do we actually do a partnership? Wholesale is always great. You know, they're covering their costs. They're not taking any massive risks. You're not taking advantage of them, but also you're like, the help is mutual.
I think it's the best opportunity for brands to partner, especially if the brands are aligned, because like you have a target demographic, you have a dream client, and if it aligns with the brands, then someone's coming in and trying their product, they're going to want to go home and buy it.
Well, think about it. Like right now, how the world works, this happens a lot with influencers, and like they are sent things to test and talk about, right? Like in hospitality, you can touch, feel, and test those products. So it's even like a deeper level on that end.
Yeah, because you're experiencing it yourself.
Yeah.
And how many times have you stayed somewhere and like looked at what the mattress brand was, or like Googled the bed sheets, because you had that direct experience?
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic. I have a question. So what is your favorite feature of Hinter House?
Wow.
When you come to stay as a guest at your own place, what is the one thing you look forward to the most when you come?
The sauna.
Okay.
Sauna. That sauna is great.
We haven't gotten into it yet, but we're so excited.
Go for, like, I don't know, it's a little journey. You have to just walk down the stairs to get there, but like you feel like you're immersing yourself into the forest, and it's like kind of like a tiny version of Hinter House. And also you guys should play with like the slats, the shutters, like opening and closing it. But either like early in the morning, like it's so quiet and you're just like sitting there, and like it's like floor to ceiling windows, and you have the forest there, and like different seasons. It just gets so quiet and so nice. It's just, you're like in your little own world. And second, I think this is also something that I was told not to do by contractors.
The heated floors. The heated floors?
No, the massive windows.
Okay, because both of those elements are the best.
Yeah,
the heated
like,
floors, I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, you just like, because windows are so freaking expensive.
Yeah.
You know, especially where we are in the world, it gets freaking cold. So like they have to be like, I think these are triple layered or something like that, so that they're insane. But I don't know, it's just like so nice to look outside and like feeling kind of like you're out. Like it's something like almost 70% of the house are windows.
And isn't that like the maximum? Like you can only have a certain number of windows.
I don't remember, but probably you're right.
Yeah. Maxed out.
And obviously a lot of times like people say, well, like there's a lot of windows, it feels weird, people can look at me, but then there's the shutters.
Yeah. And also
you can transform the house.
We're in the middle of the forest.
You're in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very secluded here. Like I never once felt like, oh my
Yeah.
God, someone's looking at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the people that even think that they're looking, like they think that they're famous and someone's looking at them,
The
you have the
paparazzi.
shutters. So you can actually close the whole thing.
Yeah.
So my next question was going to be like in terms of saves and splurges, because like the elements that you push the contractors on, like the windows.
Yeah.
What are the things that you recommend someone who's maybe just getting started to invest in, and then things that maybe they could spend a little bit less on?
I would invest a lot in like what we said, for example, windows, good quality stuff, like it feels different. Little details that don't cost that much once you're building. Like I hate baseboards, you know, like kind of like getting like details that like most people probably don't notice, but it feels different. You won't see baseboards on this house. And like the fact that like things end in a certain way makes it look cleaner. Cost wise, actually probably it's like cheaper not to put baseboards.
That's incredible news. I love that. I love that the windows go like almost all the way down. That's great.
And the fact that you talked about the heated floor, but the moment that you want to put heaters, like heated floors is one, it's not much more expensive, but the moment that you put like those heaters that go like against the wall, then you're ruining the wall, you know?
Yeah.
So little things that don't change much the cost. Lighting is another one, I think. You can do incredible lighting, like the LED that you were talking about before. It's just LED around, you know? It's not that you're going crazy with like lamps or anything, and you're hiding in it. So it's just like gives you a completely different sense of like the building where you are, and sometimes you're cutting costs with those things.
It's such an impactful feature, and to know that that's one that you can actually save on a bit, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think the list goes on though. There's like certain things like you're simplifying things. You know, you just like when it comes to like the space itself, also space-wise. You know, like so like again, bigger's not better. You know, it's just like you don't necessarily have to do like a 2,000 square feet house. It's just like if I would have to redo this house, probably I would do it like a little bit smaller. Like when we go into landscape hotels, we're gonna make them smaller than this. It's a hotel room. But if you're thinking about a business, you can still charge the same ADR. Like your average daily rate can be the same because of the features that you have and the experience that you provide. So it's not about bigger is better or like more space is better. Like you just have to find like that right amount.
And I think that's something important to highlight, is that people are willing to pay for the experience. They're not like looking at the square footage and being like, oh, I'm not going to stay there, it's too small. They're like, I want this experience and I'm willing to pay whatever it costs because I love the brand. I want to have that experience.
We've experienced, part of the Hinter portfolio, we started with the smaller houses, and we have tried through the last 6 years to add houses that are much bigger, like 3 or 4 bedrooms, and they do not perform as well.
Interesting.
They're much more expensive houses.
Yeah, because you need the people to fill them up, right? So if you want just 2
thinking
people,
about weekends, basically, yes, great, but a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nobody's going to rent that thing. So, but they will rent a hotel room or a smaller cabin. So whenever you're talking to real estate agents or contractors, bigger is better. Like the reselling value or this and that, but like until you resell it, you have recuperated your investment in like half of the time because your house is rented all the time. So, yeah.
And the thing that I've found is, as someone who wants to host retreats, I'm always looking for places that are bigger but that have privacy. So like if you're booking a house that sleeps 16 but you're all sleeping and you're sharing bedrooms, it's different than having like miniature cabins, which is much more appealing to someone who wants to go on a retreat. You don't want to actually be in one house.
especially people that you don't know yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Like maybe when you're friends or like down the line,
great,
but yeah, it is.
but
It's challenging when, and those are like the only options. Like there's not that many options in Ontario of like individual cabin dwellings where you could host something like a retreat, and it's mostly hosted at these larger houses, and it's not ideal for the privacy element.
I guess that's when landscape hotels kick in.
Yes. Yeah. Which is so exciting. I'd love to hear like what that future looks like.
So, yeah, going back to what we were talking about, how do you think the hotels will evolve? Like, I love to think what hospitality or hotels will look like in 30, 40, 50 years from now, and then just like take it back and rethink what we can build. So, a few things. Landscape hotels, you don't see them much in North America, but you see them in Europe. Simply put, it's like structures or hotels that are like hidden in nature or like kind of like merging with nature. Usually they're not one single large structure, but they're kind of like separated spaces that are in a forest. And I think that there's not enough of that. And I do think that in 20, 30 years, I mean, we see the trend, we want to connect a little bit more with nature. Like there's more and more people that they don't want to go to this massive resort, but they want to actually just like experience a beautiful place in nature. So you're creating this at a bit of a bigger scale without making it too big. Usually landscape hotels would have like from like 10 to 25 keys max.
And so people could book the whole thing for an event or just book a single cabin.
Yeah, and then 100%, that's the idea. And on the event side, I think you start creating like spaces that are built for community building. So like there's some sort of like these are the conversations that we talk with the architects or designers every time that we're thinking about landscape hotels. But it's how do you give privacy to everyone, hide them in the forest, but create paths that lead to a gorgeous fireplace or a sauna where whenever we feel connecting, it's there, but it allows you to actually retreat into it. Also, we're thinking a lot about food forests. So instead of creating a fancy restaurant, you just go and pick up your breakfast. You know, you just like go berry picking, like or like basically whatever's in season. You go to the forest, pick that up, and then creating maybe common spaces where you can invite local bakery shop or whatever it is.
I can see the whole thing. I'm sold. I want to go right now.
And I think that, I'm not saying that is the future of hospitality, but I think that is the future of a branch of hospitality where you start interacting a little bit more with local communities because you're going into like a little bit of remote places. So how do you support those communities? So you create spaces where you invite them to sell their like maybe breweries, maybe like someone's like making amazing cheese, like in Vermont, we're like kind of like doing that. The bakery, like a butcher, if that's your thing, you know, just like kind of like how do you bring them and you create this like mini market because you created this space for that. And then at the same time, like going back in time, like go and forage your breakfast. So
it's the perfect natural evolution because Airbnbs are so unlike hotels in that they're not like overly commercialized. They have heart, they have soul, and this is like the Airbnb version of that, like the next evolution.
And I think large hotels, they're in a different business and they're interested more in large scale, kind of like 200 resort, like profitability, and like that's their model for their brands. But I think you have a new wave of hotels led by individuals like us that want to create their own brand. And I think now in this day, with the technology that we have, it has never been easier to create a hotel brand with like social media, with Airbnb to start actually generating money. You know, like 20 years ago, like it was really hard to start a hotel brand. I mean, like with no Airbnb and no social media, I mean, it was a completely different ballgame. So at least for us, that's what the future looks like, more or less.
Do you know where the first one is going to be?
We're scouting land. We've been looking at Vermont for a while. We love Vermont. I think it's one of like the last hidden gems of the Northeast. Very close to New York, very close to Boston, Toronto, Montreal. So it's like super well located, but Maine and Vermont are hidden gems of the Northeast. And then we're scouting land in Colorado, like between Denver and Aspen. There's like this amazing mountain range. You're just entering the Rockies, but you still have gorgeous views of the mountains. You have desert, you have forest, you have rivers, and Denver happens to be one of the busiest airports in North America.
Busiest what, sorry?
Airports.
Oh, yes, yes.
So there's a lot of like traffic going there from nature enthusiasts.
So scouting, like what does that process actually look like? Are you literally going to these places and like standing in a field and being like, this is the place? Or?
Yeah, well, like through the Hinter Live, we've met so many people from different places that have ended up being partners or friends that want to be involved in the next chapter of Hinter. So in Colorado, we have a guy that has been involved into hotel development for 10 years. He loves Hinter, he lives in Denver, and he's like, I want to be part of this, I'm going to be scouting for land. So we talk to him like every month, how's it going? So again, it's eventually when, but it's not kind of like, hey, we're like, the clock is ticking, we need to open that hotel.
Which is the best way to go about things, like naturally.
Up and like naturally, just like it's organic. But yeah.
So let's double down on community then, because as a host, you are getting to experience your travelers are getting to experience Hinter, and I'm sure that your community has grown tenfold with so many properties under your belt. How's that been?
It's been a journey, though. I think we found, like, Hinter, like, we talked about it before, but the brand, like, the essence, it didn't exist before, right? So it's really interesting to gather people that experience something for the first time. And so it's nice to feel that, and, like, we're starting to get, like, some, like, it's so weird, but, like, deep core fans, and, like, some people that have, like, we have a membership program, or like people that pay for our Substack, that they truly believe in the brand. And that's kind of, it's weird in a way because they're definitely not your fans, and I'm okay with that. They're Hinter fans. And like we were talking about before, when you create a brand and like that becomes your kid and its own entity, and like seeing how that entity or your kid makes friends.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you feel proud of it because like they don't necessarily like you, and I'm okay with that because Hinter is a cool kid. So it's been kind of like a journey though, and it's so nice also to along the journey to hear people proposing here, like celebrating their wedding weekend
or their anniversaries,
their
2-year anniversaries.
Congrats. But yeah, it's just like very special. Like at least once a month we get someone emailing us telling us that they want to spend either birthday or planning to propose or like those sort of things, and it's kind of like, oh shit, like we just created someone where people are about to actually spend like in a very specific important moment in their lives in something that we created, and it's very gratifying, you know. Yeah. So like going back to the Hinter community, I think that has been one of the most gratifying things that we have built. There's a lot of people that truly believe in it, and that also pushes us to what's next. Like, how do we make it different? How do we keep delivering? You know, without pressure, but like more coming from excitement. Yeah.
One thing that I think is important to note is that you and your business partner / wife, Emily, are full-time. Like you both quit your jobs to do this full-time and grow this brand. For a lot of people, I think short-term rentals are kind of like a side gig. So like off the bat, like when you started going all in on this and you were scaling, how was it possible to continue to have enough revenue to kind of keep going?
Well, sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people think that it's easy, like especially short-term rentals. I'm gonna put my house or cabin on Airbnb and it's gonna be great and that's it. Anyone that has done it will tell you it's a lot of hard work. It's hard work, you know. So I think there's this misconception that there's no such thing as passive income. I mean, it's just like there's this belief out there that like just I'm not gonna do anything and like money will come in. So it's been hard, you know. It's a lot of work. It's a big risk, but it has allowed us to create the brand. You know, like putting that time and effort into it. So I think there's not much else to say that it's hard work, but you have to love it. And if you love it, you keep going just because you're having fun, you know?
And how important would you say it is that you have a shared vision with your partner? Like you guys are in this together.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what we were talking about before, that the base is there, but you keep changing certain things. So like you have the same principles, but then it will never be, and it would be boring if it would be the same, like you guys thinking exactly the same about how you want to do something. Like imagine it would be just like working with yourself, and so it would get boring at a certain spot. So I think it's just, there's challenges, but there's also like each other keeps challenging each other in like different ways, and you learn a lot about yourself and being more flexible and to compromise in certain things. And look, sometimes it doesn't work, but who cares? You know, it's just like at the end of the day, it's just kind of like it's gonna go like this. You know, it's just like, and that's part of accepting the process, that nothing has to go the way that you exactly wanted it to be. And yes, it could have been better, but who cares? You know, so it's just like
learning and evolving always.
I feel like we're learning that as well. Like the more we work together, Autumn is very much a systems, and she loves the SEO, the captions, the social media management side of things. Yeah. I'm more the creation, so let me shoot it, capture it, and logistics.
Yeah.
I'm the logistics guy.
and I think
that
it's
works.
important too, which is complementing each other,
Mm-hmm.
because I cannot imagine, Emily's the same, it's more on the writing side of things, captions, social media, and that's her thing, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm more like in the partnerships, or like what products we're gonna source and how like we're gonna do like the certain experience. So that also gives us a space, because hey, it's your thing or it's my thing, and obviously there's overlap, but like each has their own thing and not kind of like controlling like the two like one same thing.
Having the autonomy to like run with your own thing is so important.
Yeah.
So that you can each kind of have your own lanes and then come together on we'll come together on like shot list, creative direction. Like I'll be helping guide the photos, but at the end of the day, Ryan's shooting.
Yeah.
And then we're reviewing things together, and it's like and
the overlap is fun too, you know, because it's a discussion. It's just like, oh, maybe this, or like what I was saying before, it's like a challenge, you know, like someone challenges you. So it's nice on that end, you know, but I think, yeah, like Ryan has like the production side of things, and like probably you have a say, but kind of like where's most of the experience is coming from? Probably from Ryan. The other way around, like on the social side of things, kind of like Ryan probably is going to bring something up, but like kind of like you're leading it. So it's just, yeah.
And it's truly like such a collaboration, because an idea will evolve. Like I might have an idea for a shot, and then Ryan's like, well, what if we do this? And then it's like things become better.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's so cool finding someone to work with that has a shared vision, because you just make each other better.
Yeah, yeah. I think just like culturally we're evolving so much that things are different in terms of like before is like, I don't know, if you guys think about it, like 20 years ago, like you work with your partner, you work with your wife, that's gonna like just like be so dangerous, you know? It's just like, and I don't know, like it's the same thing as like now, who cares if you work from an office or not, or where do you work from? Like those things were kind of like unheard of like 10, 15 years ago. So I think we live in a time that just everything has become, like everything's blend.
Yeah. This is like backtracking quite a bit, but you were mentioning like the instructions for the speaker.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Hinter has done that is so incredible on the brand side is your private website. I was so impressed by that. So when you book and you check in, you get access to this like private website, and it has like all the information and all the things that you need to know. It also houses all of the instructions. And I think that's another example of like the importance of branding and good communication, because everything that I needed to operate that was in the website. I just sent it to Ryan. I was like, read this, figure it out.
Outsourced.
Yeah, outsourced. So yeah, I just think that that's an incredible thing that you guys have done, and not a lot of properties are doing anything like that.
You know, like going back to what I was just saying in terms of like now in this world, things are easier with technology. I mean, like you don't have to be a website designer or pay someone to put together and instructions for your Airbnb or your house or your
I mean,
hotel.
yours looks incredible. I don't know if everyone is as graphically talented as you.
Because like it just depends on the brand, right?
Yeah.
But my point being is like it's easy to create like a little page that has like your instructions, but also, I don't know, playlists or links for playlists that go with your brand.
We
Or
listened to the playlist
Yeah?
on the
Okay.
drive and
Awesome.
last night, and we loved the recipe for a good stay.
Yeah, people love that.
Last night we
I
got
think
like
that-
a
that
little
was Emily's
message.
idea. That's great.
It was so
That's
cute. It was like
epic.
the recipe for the perfect night, and it was telling us to like slow down, start a fire, put the music on, and we did
Yeah.
all those things and fell asleep, and it was great.
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was the perfect way to unwind from the drive. 'Cause
Yeah.
driving here can be stressful,
That's
sitting
amazing.
in traffic and all the things.
I
but
love to hear that. We've been also thinking about playlists. Well, you guys did it, but playlists for on the way here.
Yeah, we
It's
did.
like-
We listened anyway, but yeah.
Kind of like, hey, you're on the road.
Road trip.
Like you have like a few hours ahead of you. This is what we recommend. I mean, yeah.
It was cool. Such an eclectic mix of music too. Like it was just like so vibey and cool. We're like, where are we? This is awesome.
Nice. Okay, that's awesome to hear. Sometimes like I feel like people like don't tell me what to do.
No, it's great. It's an option, right?
option,
and
of
it's like
course.
you don't have to do that, but like here's something we think is
won't
cool.
give you the house code if you don't listen to this.
Yeah. Woo, woo. All the shutters
Exactly.
close. It's like-
I feel like it's one less thing you have to worry about too, right?
Which part?
Just having a playlist you can just put
yeah.
on, right?
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
have to. I got to curate the perfect playlist. I got to do all this extra work. You can just show up and know that everything's taken care of, which is so great about the way you run your properties. It's everything is so thoughtfully planned out that you can just show up and completely unwind.
You know where that comes from, and it's interesting. It's the fact that, and this is kind of like a new generation of hospitality, where you don't have obviously a lobby, right, or like a person that's like receiving you and just like taking care of you. So it's just like you start thinking about how do I automate this, but like still kind of like throw that personal touch into it, and like do it with technology. So it's just like you start thinking about like, okay, how do I make this kind of like we've been also thinking about like, so music is one. Like I've been thinking about how do you do this a little bit more complicated, but not too, like we haven't rolled it out yet, but music starts playing when you check in. And also when you open the door.
like the light turning on when we came in with the driveway. It was
Yeah.
like boom. I was like, yes.
Like so like and also like we talk to our cleaning teams, so like the lighting like should be kind of like nice when you check in. So yeah, music, we talked about like also, we don't know yet how to do this, but like also smells kind of just like,
Well, honestly,
trigger
the
it.
fire smell when I
Yeah?
walked in, it was
Okay.
it smelled like I was
Like
like,
a
it smells like
cabin.
Hinter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it smelled amazing.
It smelled
Okay, great.
incredible.
That was the first thing she
first
said.
thing I
Oh,
said.
yeah?
I was
Okay,
like,
I
oh,
can
my
smell
God, it smells so
hear
good.
that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
'cause
amazing.
That's what I was thinking about, how like Hinter is really intentional about touching on all the senses, which I think is so
Yeah.
important. Like the smell of the fire, the sound of the warm vintage audio. Like it's like
Oh, I
all
love
of
to
those
hear that. Yeah.
elements
Yeah.
create the stay.
That
and I
makes me
think
happy.
a lot of that goes unnoticed by a lot of properties. And it's like you really need to consider every single step in the guest journey, like getting the website in advance and getting excited and going through it, and like it's all a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's what we try, and like that's why I'm a big believer that we don't run an Airbnb. Like we are not a hotel, but like also we're not a like a short-term rental sort of thing. We're like somewhere in between, and we're like trying to explore and navigate that, and we try to push for that, you know. And I always say like hotels, the great thing about hotels is consistency, and the great thing about Airbnb that it's opening the doors to any individual to do it. But if you find a happy medium between the two, you have something special.
Absolutely. So we were chatting off camera about how there's going to be like a Hinter 2.0. You're planning some like rebrand changes. What can people expect in the next version, the next iteration, the next season, if you will?
Yeah, I think it's time for us to actually change gears. It's been 6 years, and it ties up with what we were talking about, trusting people that know things probably better than you. We were talking about architects or interior designers. We love branding. We think we're good with it, but there's always people that are amazing at it, you know? So in the past few months, we started working with art directors that like are really into, we love their work, and when it comes to art direction, photography, we've never done this before. We've always been the art directors. So it's been hard for us, but also exciting to actually give that to someone else and see what they can create with it. So we've been secretly creating new content for the past 3 months, and we're going to start kind of like a new era of Hinter where it's going to be, we officially have an art director. You know, so
that's exciting. I'm sure it does feel challenging because this has been your baby and your vision, but it's also like these people aren't completely creating something new. They're accentuating what you've already created. So it's like you're getting to see your vision take a new form.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's like print magazines and books coming up. You know?
That's
like,
amazing.
Kind of like those sort of things that are like become more tangible, more artistic.
I think having analog elements just completely fits your brand as well. Like everyone's going to look at that when they come and stay. That's so cool.
Then we're also working much more into, we talked a little bit about residencies, but now going a little bit harder on residencies. So we're talking with an artist in Toronto on how for 2 months, his furniture can take over the entire place. And it's kind of like a 2-month kind of like residency where people can come explore his furniture, and probably he's gonna be here for a week and like working on the space and just like setting it up. But then like these sort of collaborations where it becomes his showroom with a collaboration with maybe Le Centerpiece and like someone like a bookshop that's curating the magazines and the reading material, and run that for 3 months. So it just becomes more of temporary experiences. But like that's also kind of like where we're going.
I love all of it, and it's almost like these are like almost like mini marketing campaigns because you're reviving the space in a new way, reaching new audiences, doing something different. So I think that's really interesting for people because I'm sure like as a short-term rental, I mean you're not necessarily a short-term rental, but like bookings is so important, and like when you've had the same space for 6 years and you're not really changing things, it could probably be challenging with so many different new places opening up. So this is a way to kind of keep things fresh, in innovative and exciting.
And also I think it's easier because it's simple. Meaning like we're not going into large space or like not a massive house with like so much furniture. Imagine like here, like going back to those principles and like not putting too many things. Changing furniture in this house, it's like a 4-hour job.
Yeah, it's very minimal. You've got a couch and a ball and
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like if you design or build with that in mind, it's really easy to
so smart.
And it has to be intentional too, because you have limited space. The furniture has to
be kind of like
functional, but also stylistic, and it just has to work.
Meet
and each piece, when there's less, it has to shine. Right? So like you notice them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Very cool. Well, we're very excited about your next evolution, and we'll definitely have to come and check out the other properties, the new hotel.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we head out?
No, stay tuned. I think like I'm waiting for the next season.
Yeah.
So we can actually do it hopefully in Colorado, Vermont. Imagine
that would
how
be
cool.
awesome. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
3 years from now, we're in Colorado, in the mountains, in the first landscape hotel.
We'll be there, 100%. That sounds great. Where can people find you online?
Hinter.com, easiest way, or social media, Hinter Company. I think those are the 2 best places to find us.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks guys.
This was awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of Seasons, brought to you by Stay Here. We hope you enjoyed this inspiring conversation with Mauricio from Hinter. If you love learning about Hinter House, don't forget to check out the video tour on our YouTube channel, linked in the show notes, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast for future episodes.